Hello YouTube and welcome to GrunfWorks. This is episode 32 of the Interplanetary Voyage of Exploration. And in previous episode we have built a bunch of stuff and now it is time to launch it. So first we will launch the small orbital refueling station that we have constructed in the previous episode. With the interplanetary launches coming closer and closer, I thought it would be only fair that we start also building some structures in our orbit and the refueling station is the first thing to go, basically, because we will be sending lots of craft and rockets in the orbit, and eventually we will be sending some single stage to orbit aircraft because they are more reusable and they don't produce as much litter as the regular rockets do. So it is time that we start thinking about having fuel in the orbit so that we can refuel our craft, whether it's just to return to the Kerbin or to continue in the interplanetary space. So now you're seeing the launch of the small refueling station, and I have opted for the asparagus staging simply to have a better delta V and better thrust to weight performance. Not that we really need much more. And yes, so we have already reached the apoapsis to go to space, but now we will be slowly pitching down to basically raise our periapsis, and we have reached the apoapsis of 100 kilometers which is where we want to keep the orbital station. And then we are just now creating maneuver node to make sure that we have 100 by 100, and our estimated burn and nodes are too close, so ditching the fairings and just continuing. Activating the remote tech antenna to make sure that we maintain control, and then extending our solar panels. You have noticed that for some of the launches I'm running at time acceleration. I'm opting between 2 and 4 times acceleration because you have seen me doing some launches, and so I figured might as well save some time and also make sure the time that I can fill with some other interesting content. So, okay, we have reached the rough orbit where we want to be. So now I haven't been exactly meticulous with trying to be as efficient as possible and put it by 100 by something or 100 by 100, but it's 120 by 94. So we will need to do some corrections. And the one thing that I didn't think of is to actually maybe put a smaller upper stage that would be easier to maneuver. But then again, that's why we have RCS on both the station part and the bottom rocket, so that we can more easily flip this guy. And now I'm just lowering the apoapsis, and then I'll be just going now to the periapsis and make sure to raise the apoapsis, make sure to raise the periapsis, sorry. Okay, and going to our maneuver node. There we go. And yeah. So 4.5 meters per second correction, which is really a tiny amount. That's it. And I think it's 100 by 100, which I'm more than happy with, so I'm deciding to disconnect and use RCS to get away from our upper stage. So I figured might as well, put it, orient it normal, So so that it is pointing basically towards the poles. Find an optimal angle, and then we will be deploying our at least one communications array. But first I figured, okay, now coming back to this launcher, I want to bring it back, and I have noticed that I did a mistake. I have forgot to include the batteries on it. So unfortunately this guy will remain as a debris. But I'll just take it, I'll just remove it in the tracking station. But I really want that for future episodes we do deorbit our rockets and we do maybe even recover them. So yeah, now this is one more antenna pointing to the active craft. So we have two satellites that are in basically elliptical orbits, and this one which is in low Kerbin orbit, pointing to the active craft, and hopefully this should be enough for us to be able to maintain a connection. I will probably do a proper satellite network for the long ranges, but at this point I figured it's more important to get the probes out, understand how signal communicates, also unlock some more science tech nodes, because I want my next orbital network of satellites to be the final one. So that should be covering all the planets and everything. And for that, I think I need more technology and robotics parts to be able to squeeze them in a tiny space. So we are rolling out our next launch, which will be finally the nuke Jool probes. They have been long time in building, long time coming, but with the Kerbin to Jool window only 23 days away, I feel that we don't really have that much time to wait for the last second, because the rollout due to the Kerbin construction time takes some time. The launch pad reconditioning after the launch takes some time, so we want, when the Kerbin to Jool window hits us, that we are exactly ready and with both probes in orbit. So, staging the boosters, and this launcher I have opted for short and stubby, because the purpose of this first stage is just to get our probe into orbit. And from there we have plenty of delta V, I think a total of around $7,000 to get to Jool, do some science experiments, and hopefully come back. Now I'm launching 2 probes just for the redundancy of it, because Jool is far away, a lot of things can happen, and hopefully one of them will survive. If both survive, that's even better. Then I will be sending one around Jool, maybe around Val or somewhere, and another probably to Lathe, at least to get as much orbital information as possible. And this is also very important due to other reasons, such as Kerbal construction time, because once I get in the sphere of influence of the mentioned bodies, it would be able, when constructing things in VAB, we would be able to simulate our landers or our craft or our rovers in the actual orbit of a planet. So, for example, if we come to the orbit of Lathe on the sphere of influence and return some data, then Kerbal construction time would allow us to actually do simulations in Lathe's orbit, including landings, SSTOs, and whatnot. So I think it's important that we get the first batch of probes out as early as possible. Okay, burning now for the orbit on our first probe. By the way, previous episodes have been more build heavy, this one will be more launch heavy. So the goal was to launch that station, these 2 probes, and I'm even thinking that we could advance our planes towards spaceplanes and SSTOs. We'll see how much time we will have after we launch these 2 probes, and probably we will go for constructing an SSTO and maybe launching it in the next episode, because I really want our program to advance, especially in terms of spaceplanes. So, spaceplanes are actually my favorite part of this game. I really enjoy designing them. I enjoy flying with them, but to me they have to have a purpose. Just for going there, that's fine once, for example, when you're trying a specific craft. Otherwise, no. And by the way, now I'm toggling auto collect on the probe because I think that way all the data that runs will be stored in a probe. So when we'll be actually returning it, if something goes wrong, some parts get destroyed, the data will be still recollected. And from gameplay's perspective, it's only makes sense since, after all, even if you are doing the real experiments, the results you would have stored somewhere on the hard drive. And the probe, keeping all the experiments, it's, in my mind, it's similar to that. Okay, so tiny correction, because I really want both of our probes to be in almost perfectly circular orbits. I don't care whether it's 100 kilometers or 120, but it has to be circular for our burns. So we have another small correction of 27.1 meters per second. That is supposed to happen in around 5 minutes. And so the important thing was to point the rocket in the right direction, and now extending the solar panels. Not that we need them, we really have an ample amount of electric charge from the radioisotope generators, but then again, why not having them? Okay, and we are closing in on our burn. Slowly burning, just to make sure that we nail the circular orbit on the nose. And 118 by 121. Okay, well, that's good enough. As long as it's not like 120 by 90. So, time to open up our communication dishes. The two smaller ones will serve as, let's say, intermittent while we're in the sun's sphere of influence, and they're communicating with two medium-range comsats, while the big one will be obviously communicating with the with the long-range comsat 1. So this is our probe more or less prepared, and I think we will pretty soon stage, just to get rid of the ascent stage. I mean, yeah, we still have 1000 of delta V, but then again, I mean, it's not really that we need it that much, and it kind of looks nicer if we get rid of the debris. We don't want to leave that as much around in the orbit. As you can see, we already have a metric crap ton of satellites and everything else, so yeah, we do want to keep it clean. Okay, and we stage, and this return for this craft, I actually managed to implement a probe core. I obviously also forgot the batteries, but they have at least enough so that they can return back to Kerbin and burn up in the atmosphere, hopefully. And that leaves us with our Jool probe, which is ready to go on its maiden voyage. Thrust to weight is not great, but it's 0.5, which is way more than we had in the Eve probe. That one was around 0.09 or something. And just to be easier to differentiate between them, let's just call it Jool probe 1. Now I'm gonna just show you some highlights from launching the second probe, because it's again exactly the same profile, exactly the same procedure, so I don't really want to spend another 10 minutes just showing you the same old. So I will be just showing you the highlights, like an ascent and everything. So now first we have to recondition the launch pad. And we have to roll out the vessel. I just wanted to wait till daylight. As you can see, so 5 days it took us between the launch of the probe 1 and launch of probe 2. If we were doing this 2 days before, we would already be late with the launch of the second probe. So this is actually where the Kerbal construction time increases the difficulty a little bit, but then again, that's what we want. And burning for the orbit. Then again, opening up our communication arrays. 2 smaller ones and 1 bigger one. I haven't still unlocked all the 2.5 meter and 3.75 meter parts, so I'm still a little bit careful with my payload. Disconnecting, and here I did a little bit mistake. I was impatient and I bumped into my Nerva with the stage. Fortunately enough, it seems that the atomic rocket motor is still alive and healthy, which is a very fortunate thing for me. So, Jool Nuke Probe 2. And now, onwards to building something new, an SSTO. In the series to date, we have been running with planes, mostly. We have been running with turbojet planes, and in the couple episodes ago, we were running VTOLs. So, from my perspective, I have exhausted most of the things that I wanted to do with the planes on Kerbin. So it is time that our planes start becoming space planes. So this is basically at 4 times time acceleration, because I already made a video, but it was in maybe 2.24, 2 or 0.23, I don't remember. I made a tutorial on how to build an SSTO. Principles are exactly the same. This is just a different flavor of it. So I figured, rather than creating a separate episode of Kerbal Engineering, I have decided to go with just with the designing of this SSTO as a part of the interplanetary voyage of exploration. So I wanted to have 2 atomic rocket motors for a good thrust to weight. Sorry, not good thrust to weight, but good ISP. Actually, I liked more the KW Rocketry's motors. They look sleeker, cooler, whiter, whatever. Actually, to add shock cones, those will work nicely. But then again, when looking back at them, they look a little bit off. They're just too big, so I'm thinking maybe I could use a smaller one, or like this, something. But if I put it like this small, then my wings will be clipping into it, which is not usually a design choice I make lightly. So yeah, I extended it a little bit, and I think this will be just fine. Then we get enough wing surface at the back, and we get enough fuel in the tank. Okay, by the way, I really love these procedural wings. Guys, if the creator of the mod sees this video, please do update them for the 1.0 or 1.1 when it comes out, because these ones are just great. But the B9s are also cool, but this one don't have size limitations like B9, so I actually prefer these to B9. Still, yeah. Okay, now as you can see, I'm raising the tips. This provides a little bit extra additional stability. I have been testing. I thought first they didn't, but after some more testing with FAR and stuff, if you're using FAR, these wingtips are actually quite nice because they don't have a control surface, so they just provide stability. Now I'm looking for some intakes, and I want to put like one big intake at the back and a couple of smaller ones to the sides, so to make sure that we have enough intake air to be able to fly on higher altitudes, because this craft doesn't have that much thrust to weight, so it has to be able to rely on its two turbojets to get it to where it wants to go. Okay, I think I'm gonna ditch the liquid fuel tank in the front. Let's put some control surfaces at the back, also procedural ones. This procedural dynamics mode is so awesome. I mean, I don't know why we cannot have procedural wings in like a stock game or something, because I have never seen that when you're designing a plane that you're tiling the wings. Usually the wings are made out of like either one part or more. I don't know, maybe I could be wrong though, but I just haven't seen it. So, okay, time to put stuff in the cargo bay, SAS, some life support stuff. Yeah, we have a couple of more tech nodes to unlock before we start going manned interplanetary missions, one of them being the life support containers in higher form, for which we need 350 science. And I also want to do a couple of more stuff in the orbit first, and I want to get results from the interplanetary probes before I start sending Kerbals there. But we will see. If it drags too long, I'll just start sending them nonetheless. But yeah, adding some lights for beautification reasons. It's always nice to have a good illumination in the cargo bay, although I'm thinking with these two big lights on the tails, those will be more than sufficient, but still. I'm putting some of the science experiments because, well, it has to serve a purpose, right? So just getting there, even if it's a prototype, I would still like it to at least be able to perform experiments. Putting communitrons so that it can retransmit the experiments if needed, and one info drive. This is good because it helps me when I'm launching the craft to tell me what are my action groups. I found that component to be really useful, so thank you for showing me that, guys. Okay, adjustable landing gear. I think this looks sufficiently enough. So let's just do some strutting just to ensure that the craft has rigidity, and putting the fuel lines. And let's go to SSTO prototype Mark 1. I think that would be good. I've also put the ejection module for safety reasons. Put some more of intakes. Cool. Custom groups. First, turbojet engine. Second, Nerva. 3 intakes. All of them. 5 cargo bay. 9 all the wing-based air brakes, and 0 or 10 just the 2 smaller ones, so I have some flexibility. So let's simulate it, see how it runs. Oh, and I forgot to write stuff on the drive. By the way, we have 2 more hires that have joined the Kerbal Space Program. It's Phoenix Kerman and Mike Kerman. But since this is just a simulation, Jeb and Bill have snuck in just to see how stable the craft is. They have just basically jumped into the simulator, not really into the actual plane. And as you can see, yeah, Jeb, this plane is still unstable. And it's my fault in the design because I always confuse stabilizers with wingtips. And I thought maybe first removing the air intake, but that wouldn't help because our thrust to weight surface one just on the just on the surface is horrid. It's 0.34. We'll never get to space that way. So I'm thinking first replace the tail parts instead of stabilizers to put winglets, because winglets are mostly stable and only the rear surface flexes, while the stabilizers flex in whole, making the plane basically losing its yaw stability. Also tweaking a little bit of the wings, and now I have struggled a little bit in terms of how to increase the plane's thrust to weight, because those two atomic engines are very, very low power and they're very heavy. So I was thinking maybe replacing or adding another set of engines first, but when I was adding this, I've noticed when I added another set of turbojets, I've noticed my thrust to weight being actually even worse, probably due to the added fuel. So the jet engines aren't as powerful as you would think them to be. So then I was thinking of changing this and replacing it as it was. But then again, I was trying to here create a Mark II prototype that would be better thrust to weight, but 0.39, it's not really that much, and we do lose some delta V because of it. So I just reverted to my previous design, which I also aesthetically like, because for me it's also important that the planes are aesthetically pleasing. So I don't want to create butt ugly SSTOs. Well, not to me at least. Yeah, so okay. Well, thrust to weight is not the best, so let's see how we can improve this. Is there anything here what we can throw out? I do not think so. Yeah, it's 0.34. What can I do? I even thought of putting a stack decouplers here and just putting another set of engines, but that really didn't help out much. I was just trying to find if there was a better solution. Then I figured, okay, maybe turbojets. Well, not really that much. No, it's the same old, same old. So let's remove the Nervas altogether and put toroidal aerospike or 909. I think toroidal aerospike has a very good thrust to weight. So it says that our thrust to weight in the second stage would be 1.23, which is actually quite promising. So I figured, well, let's give it a go. And once again, sorry for the info drive. For the actual flight, it will be there. This is a simulation anyway. So it accelerates, but 0.33, I'm really not happy with that thrust to weight. The plane is more or less stable, which is good. So I'm just curious to see how it runs with an aerospike. Oh, wow, 1.4. Well, that's much better. And we have 2.5 thousand delta V, which I think it's good. So I think we can run with this. I think we would be able to run with this, and whether or not we will have enough delta V to get into space, we will see about that. But at least we can give it a go. Okay guys, I think I'm gonna end the simulation and cut it here. Next episode we will be probably doing some more stuff, so thank you very much for watching. This is GrunfWorks signing off.